Today, we're going to be ranking one of everyone's favorite thing, money. No one amount of money is made equally, and this video will be all of the genius logic that goes into ranking each amount of money up against one another. We're going to go in order here, so starting it right off, if you can't tell, this is a stack of $10,000 bands or $100,000. Now, $100,000 is a tricky denomination. It's more than you would buy any normal type of thing with, but it's less than you need to buy a house in basically any area of the country, at least here in the United States. So it's not actually as useful as it might seem, and having this sum of money is sort of in the in-between realm between money that you would spend on things you want versus money that you know you should save for a larger future purpose or maybe even like retirement. So you can't really do all that much with 100 grand. For that reason, we're gonna give it a B tier. Next up, for our second amount of money, we're getting right in one of the big boys, and that is $100 million. Now, $100 million obviously is enough money to do just about anything in the world. For the most part, you can get any yacht in the world, you can get any private jet you want, at least that you'd have any real use for, and of course, just about any house in the country. It's enough money to never have to care about money for the rest of your life by far, and for the rest of your family to never have to care about money for the rest of your life, if that's what you choose to do with it. But if you choose to give $100 million away, it's enough that whatever organization or cause that you donate the money to most likely will be able to accomplish any goals that they've set out to accomplish. So $100 million is really an S tier sum. All right, now almost on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the nickel, 5-cent piece. And nickels are just awful. They're not quite as bad as pennies, but you definitely cannot purchase anything for 5 cents. And even worse yet, the reason why nickels are actually worse than pennies in some cases is that they're physically large enough that they can sort of be mistaken for a quarter, especially when you're digging through a jar full of change looking for those infamous 25-cent pieces. So nickels are really kind of evil, and they're basically one of the worst forms of currency there is. They get an F tier rating. Now we have the $10,000 band, very nicely banded from the mint or bank or whatever other financial institution you may have gotten this from. $10,000 represents freedom. It represents a trip where you can do just about anything you want to do, you know, for excluding like the ultra luxury stuff. It represents enough to go out and buy gifts for all of your friends, just about anything that you want to purchase for them, excluding like high-end jewelry. And it's not too much money that, you know, if you went through it over the course of a year, you'd be financially ruining yourself for spending it. You can recoup 10,000. I guess what I'm saying is if you blew it, you could recoup it over a good enough period of time. So $10,000 is a great sum of money to be walking around with. Probably an A tier. Not quite the freedom that 100 million will get you, obviously, but yeah, 10,000 is awesome. Next up, we have $10 million, and this is going to be one of the first categories that I will seriously, but kiddingly, but kind of seriously, give a ranking that you might not expect normally. For the most part, up to this point, everything has been ranked in accordance with like how much actual currency it is. But $10 million is a tricky one because $10 million certainly puts you amongst the type of people who are very, very wealthy. $10 million can get you a lot of things, but it can also get you into a lot of trouble because with $10 million, if you feel like you have all the money in the world, but then, you know, you buy a $3 million house and a $2 million boat, obviously that's half of the money that you had to spend. And then if you continue to make further financial commitments with that $10 million, which has now been cut in half, you could really start to get yourself into some trouble. In addition to those more personalized issues, $10 million is also the realm in which you might notice yourself comparing to a lot of other people. If someone else has $18 million or $25 million, and you know they're purchasing things that sort of reflect that, or they just flat out told you about it, you're going to feel really inferior with $10 million. $10 million is an amount of wealth where a lot of the people who have it are still in the mode of comparing themselves, and a lot of us know that comparison is the enemy of happiness. So 10 million is a little bit of a curse, and it's not the best place to be. I honestly think some people who are there might agree with that. So it's going to go in the C tier on our list here. Now, I've already mentioned it on this list so far, the penny. The penny is 100% useless. It's literally trash. It's literally less useful than like scrap paper. Every once in a while, if you have a piece of scrap paper in your car, you can spit your gum into it like an old receipt or whatever. or, you know, if you needed to, you could jot a quick note down onto it. But with a penny, man, they're hard to pick up. They're always sticky and stuck to whatever surface they're laying in, whether it's your pants pocket or an old jar or laying in the cup holder of your car. They're so far from being worth enough money to buy anything in today's age that no one would ever accept them. It's totally embarrassing if you ever try to pay with them. They're tough to handle and deal with. You need hundreds of them to be able to do anything with them. They don't have the annoyance that the nickel has, where they kind of trick you into thinking there's something worth more than what they are, but they're just literally trash. And I think technically it's illegal to throw them in the trash, even though they are literally trash. Everyone just only puts them in the trash. So maybe I could even cite that due to the potential liability of having these things around, it makes them even worse. I would like to say they're not as bad as the nickel, but boy, are pennies awful. They are certainly F tier. Next up is a tricky one, $1,000. $1,000 when you're very young is an awesome sum of money. But the moment you flip to adult life, the moment you have your first monthly rent payment, or the moment you have your first mortgage payment, $1,000 instantly is minimized. And if it's one of these sums of money that if you feel like you can buy the things you want and you sort of spend it freely, it'll go really quickly. I mean, if not, over the course of an afternoon, it'll go in an instant ordering something you like enjoy having online, like, you know, a high-end pair of sneakers or a video game system, or I know girls can easily spend $1,000 on a purse. I'm just trying to make this sort of gender neutral here, so I thought I'd throw purses out there. It's not nearly like $10,000 where you can go buy things that you'd like to buy, and it's an amount of money that if you have it, you're probably spending it on a need, and that need probably costs the amount as much as it is. So it really goes in and then out, and you don't really get to feel the direct benefits of it. I actually think it's a sort of stressful sum of money. It's not bad to have though, so it's not going to be a D tier. We're going to give it a C. We're going to give $1,000 a C on this list. Next up is the American Dream. You can't quite see it from the logo yet, but this is the sum of money that people have been told for generations they need to save up in order to retire, and represents financial success and maybe financial freedom to some people, although I'm here to say it doesn't quite bring that. That is $1 million. $1 million is maybe the most idolized sum of money in American culture. It is the grand prize on many game shows. The phrase millionaire, which many people use to describe those of a financial status that they, you know, strive to get to someday. Those are people thought to have $1 million to their name. With all those things being said, it's such a prized amount of money. Now, I feel like $1 million is enough for most people. So I do think it's a very valuable sum of money. I know that may sound a little odd to hear, but I don't quite think it's all it's cracked up to be. I think most people who idolize it over their careers, and if you save consistently into a 401k plan over a 40-year working career, more often than not, and assuming you invested into the stock market, more often than not, you're going to be able to build up to $1 million. But then I think for the most people who have thought about that as a picture of wealth over their lifetimes, once they get there, they don't necessarily feel like they have as much wealth as they maybe once thought it was. So because it's a very useful sum of money, but mostly because of the huge expectation that $1 million has set upon it, and the fact that in reality I think it falls a bit short of that, we're going to give it a B. It's not quite an A, certainly not as exciting as an S tier. $1 million is not quite an A tier. If there was some amount of money on this list, which there isn't, that's like 2 to 4 million, which then I think like 99% of people can retire off of, that might be an A tier sum of money, but $1 million just isn't quite that. The dime, the 10-cent piece. There's one big advantage that these have over the nickel, which is that they're very small. They're much easier to deal with. And obviously they're worth twice as much money, so you only need 10 of them to make a buck. But their size, they're very lightweight, and the fact that they're very thin, for some reason makes them a little bit more satisfying to me. You know, obviously a dime isn't much money, so it would maybe be D tier, but yeah, I have to give it D tier. I would like to give it C because I don't hate them, but you just, maybe 5 years ago I would give it a C tier. You just can't buy hardly anything with a dime, so it's gonna be a D. Next up is the $1 bill. And boy, oh boy, do I love a $1 bill. Don't think I'm saying that for any reasons other than those that I'm going to discuss here shortly. I actually believe that most people are on the same page as me. Having some extra ones in your wallet is almost always a benefit. No one's ever mad about having too many ones in their wallet. If you ever did literally have like more than 30 or 40 ones in your wallet, you could just grab 10 or 20 of them and use them to replace a $10 or $20 bill. If you bought a burger at a restaurant, it's not that difficult to do. But there are a lot of social events where $1 bills, social events with friends, $1 bills are really handy. Poker games, community organizations, club meetings, just like literally like betting with your buddies, $1 on different random things you might be watching. $1, if you don't have any ones, it can be extremely annoying. Like if you ever need a couple of bucks and you just never carry cash, you're someone who never carries cash, boy oh boy, do you wish you had a few $1 bills. Ones are pretty awesome. They're up there. Tricky to say. I want to give it an A tier because they're so handy. But like the dime, with inflation over the last 5 years, they're just a little bit less useful. 5 years ago it'd be an A, today $1 bills are a B tier currency. $5 bill is up next. $5 bill is really annoying. $5 bill baits you into thinking, oh hey, this is like, a pretty good multiple on the base amount of physical cash, the one. However, there's like nothing that costs $5. You can't get a certainly meal at a restaurant for $5. You can't get a t-shirt for $5. Really can't get a pair of socks for $5. I don't think I'd ever go into a store with a $5 bill thinking, hey, I'm maybe a pack of gum. A pack of gum is like $2 or $3, but if you're buying a pack of gum, you're probably picking it up along with several other groceries that you're using a credit card to pay with. You can't go to an event like a concert or a sports game to buy anything for a $5 bill. So because the $5 bill can bait you into thinking that there's some real value there, even though there's actually not, it's a D tier currency. It's really not that cool to have around. It's there tied with the dime for being pretty crappy. All right, the big kahuna for this list, the largest sum of money we're going to be talking about today, $1 billion. If you're a billionaire, you've certainly surpassed all of the, we'll say 99.9% of the metrics of money that deal with actual utility of money, meaning you can buy everything you've ever needed or wanted. Hopefully you're past the $10 to $50 million mindset where you're really comparing yourself to other people. Hopefully you're just utilizing your net worth for like the access that it can bring you. And I think most billionaires are probably in that class. I don't know any billionaires personally, but I'm just guessing here. But it also isn't as fulfilling as each incremental new amount of money, like getting to 100 million might be. So believe it or not, $1 billion is probably an A tier amount of money. Next we have the 50, and my opinion on this one may be a little bit biased, because look, the 50's fine, but anytime I have 50s in my wallet, I'm just mad that it's not hundreds. I just wish I would have never gotten those two 50s from the ATM. I wish they would have given me one Benjamin, maybe a little foreshadowing in that comment to what's to come in two currencies from now. But, certainly you can get a handful of things with it. You don't look cool with a 50. You look pretty cool if you pay with a $100 bill. And no one wants them, so they're kind of in this middle ground where they're pretty annoying and not that cool. We're gonna give the 50 a C tier. The golden dollar. I was debating whether or not we'd actually include the golden dollar on this list just because it's so rare. Kind of like the $2 bill, it's very rare. But it is notable because it's golden, because it's a coin that's worth one whole dollar, and specifically for its comparison to the single, the $1 bill, which I think is a notable conversation piece. Man, when you're like 10 years old, the golden dollar is S tier. It's the coolest amount of money, and specifically piece of currency, you could ever come across. Nowadays, I can't imagine any situation where I'd want a golden dollar. Kind of like the penny or the nickel. Now, obviously, it's relatively more valuable than the penny or the nickel, and it has a slight cool factor. So it's relatively more valuable than those. That at least puts it to D. It still carries a slight cool factor. Not the 10 or 12-year-old cool factor, but a slight cool factor where if I busted them out and threw it on a table, at least we would talk about it for about 17 seconds. If I'm tipping a waitress or a waiter after a meal. So we're gonna say the golden dollar is probably at a C tier. All right, here we go. My personal favorite amount of money, $100, and specifically the $100 bill, the Benjamin. This one has become a staple of American culture, much like the $1 million amount has, but in a much different way. It much more signifies coolness and fun and enjoyment. And unfortunately, sometimes that can go the wrong way, but if you utilize $100 bills the right way, it can provide a lot of freedom. If you got a couple hundreds in your wallet, you can do a lot on any given day. It's really, really cool to be able to pay with 100. Let's say you have a bill that's 70 bucks and it's like, hey, keep the change. Wow, that's a nice tip. Thank you so much. It's an even, clean $100 bill. You can fit a handful of them in your pocket. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and it is just cool. I'd rather have 100 bucks than $1 billion. So it's getting an S tier on our list here today. Next up is the quarter. Personally, in my life, the value of a quarter has kind of gone like this. When I was a little kid, in the elementary school that I attended, we had popcorn day once a month, I want to say. And if you brought in a quarter, you could buy a bag of popcorn. Super salty popcorn, might I add. Boy, was that stuff good. Some of the best popcorn I've ever had in my life. I just loved getting a quarter, or sometimes two, out of my dad's change jar when I was in elementary school, bringing it into popcorn day and being able to slam one of the most, and the whole school just smells so good like popcorn on popcorn day. Your mouth is just watering until like 10:15 a.m. when they come around with a big cart full of popcorn bags. You give the guy your quarter. So I loved it. Getting into college and adult life, you know, when you stop carrying around change, quarters being the biggest, physically largest piece of change, they're pretty annoying, but they're too valuable to just throw away, like a nickel or sometimes a dime would be. You kind of need to save them. So quarters are maybe the last thing keeping those Coinstar machines alive, where you like dump in your change and they give you 90% of the value back in cash currency. So they became pretty annoying for myself and I think most people. However, and this last piece is going to be personalized to me. My wife absolutely loves quarters. Don't ask me why. For some reason, to her, they represent enough currency to do something with, but not enough currency to actually be money. So it's kind of like free stuff. With quarters, anything you purchase with quarters, it's like it was free anyway. So she likes to wait until she has like, 15, 20 quarters saved up, and she'll get a cup of coffee with it. She'll get a bag of chips at the gas station. I don't know. And it's always quarters. She always asks me for my leftover quarters. Over the years, I've been married for 8 years. Over the years, I have found myself agreeing more and more with her thinking. That doesn't always happen in marriage, but in the case of quarters, it does. So that's why quarters have sort of, made a little bit of a comeback in terms of the value that they provide. I like them more than a golden dollar. Quarters are a B tier amount of money. Next is a $10 bill. This is the third example in which I'm going to use this 5 years ago comparison, because like 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, the 10 was like what the 20 is today. The 10 could get you a lot. If you had some 10s, you could get a lot done with it. Now, like with the 50, I just wish I had 20s instead of 10s. There's really not much you can get with the 10, especially after tax and tip. The cheapest of lunches are like $10.79, so you need some change to buy. You'd have to have a lot of 10s in your wallet to be worth anything. I'm gonna give the 10 a D tier. It's down there near the $5 bill. Last but not least, and certainly not best, but maybe best but not best, is the 20. The 20 is the classic ATM currency, and unless you do any type of side job that, you're like collecting illegally, not reporting on your taxes, where you're just getting paid in cash, or you're in some type of economy, like a waiter or waitress, where you're getting cash tips, then you're like me, and the only way you actually get physical cash is by stopping at the ATM. ATMs give you 20s all the time. It's the classic ATM currency. You can do a whole lot with it. It's always nice to have. If anyone ever asks, like, hey, you got any cash on you? Open up your wallet. The first thing you're probably looking for is 20s, and it's probably the first thing you're seeing when you do have some cash on you. If you don't have any cash on you, your first thought is, man, I wish I had a few 20s in my wallet right now. So 20s are real handy. They can go a long way, and they're really nice to have. Never angry to, get a handful of 20s out of the ATM. They're up there. Not quite with the 100. 20s are, I would probably give it a B+, but since there's no pluses, we're going to give it an A. $20 bill is an A-class currency. I hope there's a lot of great debate that can come from my ranking on this list. Feel free to complete this list on your own. It's public on tiermaker.com. Or let me know in the comment section down below what you think about it. As always, thanks for watching.